"She will not work on this ranch," the foreman shouted and sent the overweight girl to an angry cowboy. $20 says she doesn't last till lunch. I'll take that bet. She won't make it past the first task. Laughter echoed across the ranch as 5 men huddled near the water trough, their eyes locked on the hiring line, specifically on Maura Brennan. She stood near the end of the line, hands clasped in front of her worn dress, pretending not to hear them. She'd walked 6 miles before dawn to get here. This was the last ranch hiring for 50 miles. This was her last chance. "Look at her," one man whispered loud enough to carry. "Foreman's going to take one look and send her packing or send her to Callahan's crew as a joke." Oh God, that would be perfect. The fat girl and the slave driver. She'd quit before noon. More laughter. Maura's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes forward. She'd heard worse. Survived worse. The foreman appeared from the barn, clipboard in hand, his face hard and weathered. He walked the line of 23 workers like a general inspecting troops. Fencing crew. Stables. Water duty. Each assignment was sharp, efficient, final. Then he stopped. His boot scraped against gravel as he came to a halt directly in front of Maura. The entire yard went silent. He looked her up and down slowly, his lip curling. "You serious?" he said finally. Maura's throat tightened. "Yes, sir. I can work." "Work?" He repeated the word like it was a joke. "Look at you. You'll collapse before lunch." Behind her, someone snickered. Heat flooded Maura's face, but she forced herself to speak. "I'm stronger than I look, sir." "Are you now?" The foreman crossed his arms, his voice rising so everyone could hear. "Tell me, girl, what kind of work you done before?" "Laundry. Kitchen work. Hauling. Whatever's needed." "Whatever's needed," he echoed mockingly. He turned to the other workers. "You hear that? She'll do whatever's needed." Laughter rippled through the yard. The men by the water trough grinned at each other. Maura's hands clenched into fists, but she kept her chin up. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The foreman studied her for a long moment, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "All right then," he said slowly. "You want work? I'll give you work." He turned toward the far side of the yard where a group of men stood apart from the others. Lean, hard-faced, silent as stone. "Callahan," the foreman shouted. One man turned. Broad-shouldered but whip-lean. His face was weathered like old leather, his expression unreadable. Dark eyes that missed nothing. Sleeves rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scarred from years of brutal labor. Ronan Callahan. The yard seemed to shift when he looked their way. A worker near Maura whispered, "Oh no, poor girl." Another muttered, "Callahan's crew. She's done. 3 days. That's generous." The foreman's grin widened. "Callahan, you got yourself a new hand. Brennan here says she can work. Let's see how long she lasts on your crew." Ronan walked toward them, his boots striking the ground with steady, deliberate force. The crowd parted without thinking. He stopped in front of Maura, looking down at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Several heartbeats passed. Then he spoke, his voice low and rough as gravel. "Can you lift 50 pounds? Maura swallowed hard. "Yes." "Can you work 12 hours without stopping?" "Yes." "Can you follow orders without complaining?" "Yes." Ronan studied her for another long moment. His eyes swept over her once, not with mockery, but assessment. Then he nodded once. "Follow me." He walked toward his crew without checking if she'd obey. Maura hurried after him, heart pounding. Behind her, the foreman's voice rang out. 3 days? She won't last 3 days. I give her till sunset. Another called, Callahan works his crew like dogs. She'll be crying by noon. Laughter followed her like wolves. Ronan stopped by a pile of tools where 5 men waited, silent, unreadable. "Brennan," he said, not looking at her. "Fence repair. Grab a post hammer and wire cutters. Watch the others." "Yes, sir." He walked off. A grey-bearded man eyed her. "Ever done fence work before?" "No." "Then you're going to bleed." The day began. Maura gripped the hammer, palms slick with sweat, and copied the men's brutal rhythm. Lift. Swing. Drive. Within an hour, her arms screamed. No one spoke. Only the thud of hammers and the screech of wire filled the air. Ronan moved among them like a shadow, checking every post. "Sloppy," he told one man. "Fix it." He stopped beside Maura. She froze as he tested her post, checked the wire, then walked away without a word. No praise. No criticism. She'd take it. By midday, her hands were raw, blood mixing with dirt. She didn't stop. When the men broke for water, she drank with trembling hands. The grey-bearded man watched. "You all right?" "I'm fine." "You won't be by sunset." The afternoon sun burned overhead. Maura's vision blurred. Her arms felt like lead. Every swing sent pain through her shoulders. But she kept watching Ronan. He worked harder than anyone. Faster. Tighter. Never slowing. His shirt clung to his back, drenched in sweat, but his pace never faltered. He wasn't cruel. He was relentless. And he held himself to the same brutal standard he demanded from his crew. Maura understood. To survive here, she couldn't work like the men. She had to work like him. At sunset, Ronan called, "That's enough." The men dropped their tools and headed to the bunkhouse. Maura stood by the fence, staring at her bleeding hands. She couldn't close her fingers. Fighting back tears, she sat on a post. Ronan's footsteps approached. He stopped beside her, set a small tin on the post, and walked away. So she opened it with shaking hands. The cool white balm stung like fire, but it was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in 6 years. She looked toward the bunkhouse where Ronan's silhouette faded into the dusk and made a vow. She would not quit. She would not fail. They'd sent her here as a joke, expecting her to break. But she wouldn't. She'd prove every one of them wrong. Laughter drifted from the bunkhouse. Her name carried on the wind. Let them laugh. She'd been a joke her whole life. Not anymore. Not here. Morning came too soon. Maura woke in the dark, her hands burning beneath blood-stained bandages. Every movement hurt as she dressed and stepped into the silent yard. She was the first there. Ronan emerged from the barn with tools, pausing when he saw her. "You came back," he said. "I said I would." He studied her, then nodded once. "Good." It was enough. 2 weeks passed like years. Maura woke each morning before dawn, her body screaming in protest. Every muscle ached. Her hands, though toughened by the salve Ronan had left, still cracked and bled by day's end. But she showed up. Every single morning. Ronan's crew worked like machines, hauling lumber, digging post holes, mending fences that stretched for miles across the rocky hills. And Ronan pushed them all without mercy. "Faster," he'd say, his voice flat and cold. "Not level. Do it again. Sloppy work. Fix it." The men obeyed without argument. They'd learned long ago that Ronan Callahan didn't accept excuses. Maura learned it, too. On the 4th day, she'd hammered a post crooked. Ronan had walked past, stopped, and pointed. "Pull it. Start over." She'd wanted to cry, wanted to argue that she'd worked on that post for 20 minutes, but she pulled it and started over. Ronan had watched until she finished, then nodded once and walked away. That nod became the only approval she needed. The foreman visited Ronan's section regularly, always watching Maura with a smirk. "She's still here," he'd say loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Thought she'd have quit by now." "Callahan, you going soft?" Ronan never answered. Just kept working. But Maura noticed something. On days the foreman visited, Ronan assigned her easier tasks. Not lighter work, but tasks closer to where he was working. Within sight. Within protection. The other men noticed, too. "Boss never keeps new workers this long," the grey-bearded man, whose name was Emmett, muttered one afternoon. "Maybe he sees something," another replied. "Or maybe he's got a soft spot." They glanced at Maura, then went back to work. Maura said nothing. She couldn't afford to give him reason to doubt her. Her past haunted her in quiet moments. She'd think of her stepfather's voice, "Dead weight. That's all you'll ever be." She'd remember the jobs she'd lost. The boarding houses that turned her away. The night she'd slept in barns, shivering and hungry. This ranch was different. Here, no one cared what she looked like. They only cared if she could work. And she could. One evening, after the crew was dismissed, Maura stayed behind to finish tightening a section of wire. Her hands bled again, but the work calmed her. Footsteps approached. Ronan. He stopped a few feet away, watching her work in silence. Maura's hands faltered. "I'm almost done." "I didn't tell you to stay late." "I know. I just wanted to finish." Ronan stepped closer, inspecting her work. The wire was taut. The post straight. "Why are you still here?" he asked quietly. Maura looked up, confused. "You told me to be here at dawn." "I've been here every—" "No." His voice was softer now. "Why are you still here on this ranch? Most people quit my crew within a week. You've lasted 2. Maura's throat tightened. She looked down at her bleeding hands. "Because I have nowhere else to go." The words hung in the air between them. Ronan was silent for a long time. Then he sat on the fence post beside her, his shoulders sagging slightly. "My sister had nowhere to go either." Maura glanced at him, surprised. Ronan never spoke about anything personal. "Her name was Cora," he continued, his voice rough. "She was built like you, heavyset. Strong." Maura's chest tightened. "Everyone mocked her," Ronan said. "Lazy. Worthless. But she wasn't. She worked harder than anyone I knew." He paused, staring at the distant hills. "Our father ran a ranch in Montana. He didn't care how hard she worked. It was never enough. So I pushed her, told her to work harder, prove them all wrong." His jaw clenched. "She did. She worked until her body gave out. Collapsed in the field one day. Heart couldn't take it. She was 22. Maura's eyes stung. "I'm sorry. I killed her." Ronan's voice was flat. "My standards. My pushing. I thought I was helping her prove herself, but I just worked her to death." He turned to look at Maura. And for the first time, she saw the weight he carried. "That's why you're so hard on your crew," Maura whispered. "I won't let weakness kill anyone else." Maura shook her head slowly. "I'm not weak, and neither was she." Ronan's eyes searched hers. "She was strong," Maura continued. "She endured cruelty and kept working. That's not weakness. That's strength." Ronan looked away, his jaw tight. They sat in silence as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky deep orange. Finally, Ronan stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be harder." Maura watched him walk away, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched. For the first time, she understood. He wasn't trying to break her. He was trying to make sure she survived. Because he couldn't save his sister. But maybe he could save her? That night, Maura lay in her bunk staring at the wooden ceiling. Her body ached. Her hands bled, but her heart felt lighter because Ronan Callahan had shared his wound with her. And in doing so, he'd shown her she wasn't alone. They were both survivors, both carrying weight the world couldn't see. And somehow that made the work easier to bear. Outside, the ranch settled into silence. Inside, Maura closed her eyes and whispered into the dark, "I won't quit. Not for the foreman. Not for the crew. For herself. And for the man who'd lost his sister but refused to lose her." The third week began with rain. Cold, relentless rain that turned the ranch into a sea of mud and made every task twice as brutal. Ronan's crew worked through it without complaint, hauling lumber through ankle-deep sludge, driving posts into ground that fought back with every strike. Maura's clothes clung to her, heavy and cold. Her boots sank with every step, but she kept pace with the men, refusing to slow down. The foreman appeared mid-morning, standing under the overhang of the barn, dry and smirking. He watched Maura struggle with a load of lumber, her feet slipping in the mud. "Still here, Brennan," he called out. "Thought the rain would wash you away by now." Maura ignored him, adjusting her grip on the lumber. The foreman turned to Ronan. "Callahan, need to talk to you." Ronan set down his tools and walked over, his face unreadable. The foreman spoke loud enough for the crew to hear. "Got a big job today, hauling fence posts from the north field to the south pasture. 200 posts. Need it done by sunset." "My crew can handle it," Ronan said. "Because I'm assigning Brennan her own load." Ronan's eyes narrowed. "What? She wants to prove herself, right? Let her. 50 post solo. If she can't keep up, she's done." The crew stopped working. Listening. "That's twice what one person should haul," Ronan said, his voice low and dangerous. "Then she better work fast, or quit. Either way, I win." He walked away, whistling. Ronan stood rigid, his fists clenched. Maura stepped forward. "I can do it." Ronan turned to her. "It's a setup. He wants you to fail." "I know." Maura's voice was steady. "But I'm not going to." Ronan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "North field. Start loading." The north field was a quarter-mile from the work site. Maura walked there alone, the rain soaking through her clothes. The fence posts lay stacked in massive piles, each one heavy and awkward to carry. She gripped the first post, hoisted it onto her shoulder, and started walking. Her boots sank into the mud with every step. The post dug into her shoulder. Rain blurred her vision. She made it to the south pasture, dropped the post, and walked back. And again. By noon, she'd hauled 20 posts. Her shoulder was raw. Her legs trembled. Her lungs burned, but she kept going. The men worked nearby, hauling their own loads in pairs. They glanced at her occasionally, but said nothing. Emmett, the grey-bearded man, shook his head. "She's going to collapse." "Maybe," another replied, "but damn if she ain't stubborn." Afternoon crawled by. Maura's vision started to blur. Her hands shook. She stumbled twice, catching herself before falling. 30 posts. 35. 40. The rain grew heavier. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Maura lifted the 41st post. Her body screaming in protest. She took 3 steps and her leg buckled. She fell hard, the post crashing beside her into the mud. She lay there gasping, rain pouring over her face. "Get up." Her stepfather's voice echoed in her mind. Dead weight. The foreman's laughter. "She'll quit before sunset." The girls at the boarding house. "Look at her. She's nothing. Get up." Maura pressed her hands into the mud and pushed herself to her knees. Then she heard boots. Ronan appeared through the rain, his face hard. "Get up," he said. Maura tried. Her legs wobbled. Ronan reached down, gripped her arm, and pulled her to her feet. "You've hauled 41 posts," he said. "9 more." "I can't." "Yes, you can." His voice was firm. "I've watched you for 3 weeks. You don't quit. You don't break. You endure." Tears mixed with rain on her face. "I'm so tired." "I know." Ronan bent, lifted the fallen post, and held it out to her. "But you're not done yet." Maura stared at the post, then at Ronan. He wasn't doing it for her. He was standing with her. She took the post. They walked together to the south pasture. Ronan didn't carry anything. He just walked beside her, matching her pace. When she dropped the post, he walked back with her, and again. By the time the sun began to set, Maura had hauled all 50 posts. She collapsed onto the muddy ground, gasping for breath. Ronan crouched beside her. "You did it." Maura looked up at him through exhausted eyes. "Why did you help me?" "I didn't help you. I walked with you. There's a difference." He stood, offering his hand. Maura took it and he pulled her to her feet. "You proved something today," Ronan said quietly. "Not to the foreman. Not to me. To yourself." Maura's throat ached. "I didn't think I could. Now you know you can." They walked back toward the bunkhouse together, the rain finally easing. The foreman stood by the barn, his face twisted with frustration. Ronan walked past him without a word, but Maura stopped. She looked the foreman in the eye and she smiled. Then she walked away. That night, as Maura lay in her bunk, every muscle in her body screamed, but her heart soared because she'd been pushed to her breaking point, and she hadn't broken. The next morning brought clear skies and a visitor. Gregory Garrett arrived in a polished carriage, his clothes expensive, his smile easy. He was the ranch owner's son, a man who'd never worked a day of hard labor in his life. He toured the property with his father, inspecting buildings and watching the crews work. When he reached Ronan's section, he stopped. His eyes landed on Maura. She was hauling water buckets to the crew, her dress still stained with yesterday's mud, her face tired but determined. Gregory whispered something to his father, then walked over. "Excuse me, miss," he called. Maura set down the buckets, wiping her hands on her dress. "Yes, sir." Gregory looked her up and down, his expression a mix of curiosity and pity. "What's your name?" "Maura Brennan, sir." "Brennan." He nodded slowly. "And you work for Callahan's crew?" "Yes, sir." "Doing what exactly?" "Whatever's needed, sir." "Fence work?" "Hauling?" "Repairs?" Gregory's eyebrows rose. "That's brutal work. Surely there's something more suitable for a woman." Maura's jaw tightened. "I manage fine, sir." "I'm sure you do." His voice was kind but condescending. "But you shouldn't have to. This is no place for someone like you." "Someone like you." The word stung more than he probably intended. "I appreciate your concern," Maura said carefully. "But I'm happy with my work." "Are you?" Gregory stepped closer. "Or are you simply enduring because you have no other choice?" Maura said nothing. "I thought so." Gregory smiled. "Listen, Miss Brennan, my family owns a boarding house in town. We need a housekeeper. Decent pay. Clean room. Far easier than breaking your back out here." Maura's heart skipped. Easier work. A room. Safety. "I'll even arrange transportation," Gregory continued. "You could start next week. Leave all this behind." Behind them, the foreman had appeared, listening with a satisfied smirk. "See, Callahan," the foreman called out. "Even Mr. Garrett knows she doesn't belong here. Let the girl go. Save yourself the embarrassment." Ronan stood near the fence line, hammer in hand, his face unreadable. He didn't speak. Didn't move. just watched Maura. Waiting. Gregory extended his hand. What do you say, Miss Brennan? A fresh start. Maura stared at his outstretched hand. This was everything she'd wanted. Security. Kindness. An escape from the brutal labor that left her bleeding and exhausted every night. She glanced at Ronan. He still hadn't moved. His dark eyes held hers, but he said nothing. This was her choice. Hers alone. Maura thought of the past 3 weeks, the blisters, the exhaustion, the mockery, but also the salve Ronan had left. The way he'd walked beside her when she hauled those 50 posts. The moment he'd shared his sister's story. She thought of the girl she'd been when she arrived at this ranch, ashamed, broken, convinced she was worthless, and the woman she was becoming, capable, unbreakable. She looked at Gregory's kind, pitying face. Then she lowered her eyes and shook her head. "Thank you, Mr. Garrett," she said quietly. "But I'm staying." Gregory blinked. "I beg your pardon." "I'm staying," Maura repeated, stronger now. "I appreciate the offer, but this is where I belong." "Belong?" Gregory laughed. "Miss Brennan, look at yourself. You're covered in mud and bruises. This work is destroying you." "No, sir." Maura met his eyes. "It's building me." The foreman's smirk faded. Gregory stared at her, speechless. Maura picked up her water buckets. "If you'll excuse me, my crew needs water." She walked away, her heart pounding. Behind her, Gregory turned to Ronan. "She's mad." Ronan finally spoke, his voice low. "No, she's strong. Strongest person on this ranch." Gregory shook his head and walked back to his father's carriage. The foreman glared at Maura, then stormed off. Maura delivered the water to the crew, her hands trembling slightly. Emmett took a ladle, drinking deeply. "That was something," he muttered. "What was?" Maura asked, turning down easy money to stay here. She grinned. "You're crazier than Callahan." The other men chuckled, but there was respect in their eyes. Now that evening, after the crew was dismissed, Ronan found Maura by the stables. "You could have left," he said. "I know." "Why didn't you?" Maura turned to face him. "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not running away. I'm standing my ground." Ronan's expression softened, almost a smile. "You're stubborn." "So are you." This time he did smile. "Small but good," he said, "means you'll survive." He started to walk away, then paused. "Maura." She looked up. It was the first time he'd used her first name. "You made the right choice," he said quietly. Then he disappeared into the evening shadows. Maura stood alone, the stars beginning to appear overhead. She'd chosen the hard path, the painful path, but it was hers. And for the first time in 6 years, she felt free. Morning came cold and sharp. Maura woke to the sound of boots on gravel and raised voices outside the bunkhouse. She dressed quickly and stepped into the yard. A crowd gathered near the barn, the entire crew, Foreman and Hans, all watching something unfold. Her stomach sank. She pushed through and saw the foreman standing at the center, arms crossed, face twisted with satisfaction. Facing him was Ronan, jaw tight, fists at his sides. "What's going on?" she whispered to Emmett. "Foreman's making his move," he muttered. "Called everyone here. Says he's got an announcement." The foreman raised his voice. "Attention, everyone. Got a matter to settle." The yard went silent. "Brennan. Up here." Maura stepped forward, pulse pounding. "You've been here 3 weeks." "Yes, sir." "Well, I've been watching you," he said, smirking, "and I've made a decision. You're done. Pack your things. Off this ranch by noon." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maura's breath caught. "What? Why?" Because you don't fit here. You slow down the crew. Callahan's been shielding you, but that ends today. I've done every task you've given me, Maura said, voice shaking. You've survived, the foreman sneered. We need workers, not charity cases. Silence fell, until Ronan stepped forward. She's the best worker I've got. Every head turned. The foreman's smirk faltered. What? I said she's the best. She outworks half the men here and doesn't complain. You're biased, the foreman snapped. You've been soft on her since day one. I've been fair, Ronan said. Same tasks as everyone else. And she finished everyone, without excuses, without quitting. He faced the crew. You all saw her haul 50 posts alone in the rain. Most men quit halfway. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The foreman's face reddened. This is my decision, Callahan. She goes. Then I go, Ronan said, voice like steel. The yard went still. If she goes, I go. And my crew goes with me. Emmett stepped forward. I'm with Callahan. Another man nodded. Me, too. One by one, his crew joined him. The foreman's confidence cracked. You can't be serious. Over her? Over principle, Ronan said coldly. You sent her here as a joke to humiliate her. But she proved you wrong. A new voice cut through the tension. Callahan's right. The ranch owner, Thomas Garrett, stepped from the barn, having watched from the shadows. Sir, the foreman began. Enough, Thomas interrupted. I've seen Miss Brennan's work. She's competent, reliable, and tough. Exactly what this ranch needs. He turned to the foreman. You, on the other hand, run this place with mockery and spite. That ends now. The foreman went pale. Miss Brennan stays, Thomas said firmly. And you'll watch your mouth. I don't tolerate cruelty on my land. He looked to Maura. You've earned your place here. Tears stung her eyes. Thank you, sir. Thomas walked off. The foreman stood frozen as the crowd dispersed. Ronan approached. You all right? Maura nodded, unable to speak. Good, he said quietly. Back to work, everyone. The men scattered, but something had changed. Respect hung in the air. That evening, Maura stayed late, mending fence wire, trying to process it all. Footsteps approached. Ronan. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. You don't have to work late anymore, he said. You proved yourself. I like the quiet, Maura replied softly. Helps me think. What are you thinking about? That I almost lost this, she said, gesturing to the ranch. All of it. You wouldn't have, he said. If you'd gone, I'd have gone, too. She turned to him. But why risk everything for me? He was silent a moment, the sunset burning orange and purple behind him. When Cora died, he said finally, I swore I'd never care again. Caring meant pain. Then you showed up, bleeding hands, exhausted, but you didn't quit. I saw her in you. That same strength everyone else missed. Maura's throat tightened. But somewhere along the way, he went on, voice rough, it stopped being about Cora. It became about you. He reached out, taking her hand gently. The way you show up before dawn. The way you never complain. The way you look at me like I'm not just the hard bastard everyone says I am. Her breath caught. Ronan, I don't just want you on my crew, he said, thumb brushing her knuckles. I want you in my life, beside me. Not as a worker. As my partner. Tears filled her eyes. You can't mean that. Why not? Because no one's ever wanted me. Not like that. Then they were fools, he said, cupping her face. I'm not easy. I'm rough and demanding. But with you, I want to try. Her hands rested on his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," he said softly. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." He searched her eyes. "Stay with me. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Because you want to. Because you feel this, too." She looked at him, the man who gave her salve when her hands bled, who stood up for her, who saw her strength when others mocked her. "I do feel it," she whispered. "I felt it since you left that tin of salve." Something in Ronan's face softened, almost a smile. "Then say yes." "Yes," Maura breathed. "Yes to all of it." Ronan pulled her close and she melted into him, safe for the first time in her life. They stood together as stars began to appear. Two broken souls finding something unbreakable. "We start tomorrow," he murmured against her hair. "Building something together." Maura smiled. Together. She had come to this ranch as a joke, a woman expected to fail. But she'd become the one who refused to break, the one who found her strength, and the one who captured the heart of the man everyone feared. As the night deepened, Maura whispered into the darkness, "I made it." But this time, she wasn't alone.